Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Dirt Racing Series. We're on our first race in the EMEA Central Zones with the Mount Tider group, and looking at the top category here, it's the Platinum Plus. We've moved over to the Zwift Racing apps ranking points, so rather than having just basic watt per kilo categories that didn't really create great racing that DRS has always been after, we've instead going with a ELO style ranking system based on results, and so we're going to see a bit more exciting racing hopefully this series with a bigger range of watt per kilo, and then we've got the pure sprinters as well, still there to smash out every single segment. So looking at today's course, we're on downtown Dolphin in Crit City, that's the clockwise loop. Going up the little kicker, the course profile doesn't quite tell the full story. It looks very flat, and for the most part it is. It's one of the flattest courses on Zwift, but the little kicker is going to really come into play each lap. See numbers between 6 to 8 watt per kilo every single lap up there, and it just starts to eat away at the legs. We've got 3 segments in play. We've got first across the line, which is at the start finish banner on lap 2 and 8, and then on the penultimate lap 15 we have an FTS up the little kicker on the cobbles, which is going to really spread out the group, give the opportunities for breakaways, carry on going from that all the way to the finish, and make things a bit spicy going into it. As you can see the points on the right hand side of your screen, sticking with pretty much the same points as last season. Plenty of points all the way back with first across the line and FTS, and then the finish points, which is going to be the main focus, especially for this race. We've got 13 different teams in this race today, so there's plenty of points on offer. With up to 8 riders per team, we're going to see those finishing points going all the way down. So those people who can stick on and score good points at the end are going to really benefit their teams. For those who aren't aware, we've got the top 4 riders scoring points for your team, but as I said earlier, all 8 can enter every single race. So they could see some tactics with people possibly blocking out those first across the line and fastest through segments and stopping other teams from scoring, then seeing what they have at the finish. Or some teams will just play it nice and simple, just the highest scorers get it. So we're going to jump onto the live stream now. We're watching over them with 1:20 to go to the start. Looking at the teams we have, got Beast Mode signed up, Rose Beast Mode, which will be very, very strong. Believe they're our champions last time round in this category and time zone. We've got Coalition, pushing up a couple of Bs, a couple of As in there. It's good to see them stepping on. Lots of sprint watt per kilo there, maybe lacking a little bit on the raw power. Coned have got another strong team, a couple of former Bs moving up. It's good to see the top riders racing in this top category. Even if maybe they don't have the watt per kilo to compete on the hillier courses, they'll be able to stick out on some of these flat ones and really make it a little dig at them. We've got one of the dirt teams, I think it's down Dirty Ospreys, taking part. And then ESRT, who'll be one of the favourites for this. Very strong team breakaway from SZR. And lots of really experienced, clever riders racing them, probably with a DS there. John Verm, Martin Sunderland, some of the favourites, and strong riders in that team. Then Foudre, French team, lots of riders. Cyrus Magain pushing on through, he's always been a strong rider in B. Jean-Marc Marin as well. There's lots of strong teams. We've got Scanelleri, the Italians, Wahoo Lacol, and ABR. So as we set off, it's going to be a fairly standard start. Nothing too crazy expecting. We saw earlier in the morning Atlantic races that people pushed the pace a little bit just to see if there's any people they could catch by surprise, especially with such a variety of watts per kilo throughout the field. Let's see, people setting off nice and comfortably here. One rider's gone up the road quite hard. Just take a look, see if we can find out who it is. I think it looks like it might be one of the Beast Mode riders. And is it Christophe TM? One of the strongest riders, watt per kilo in the field. Possibly see if you can go all the way for the second lap foul points. 8 watt per kilos out of the block is real strong. 50 kph, whereas the group behind is probably going to be doing 45, 46. Yep, as you can see there. So this gap is going to grow, but it's a big effort to be able to do this for 5 minutes, and that's what we're looking at here. We're looking about 210, 220 a lap. And so to stay away for these first 2 laps until their first cross the line points is going to be a big 5-minute effort. What we might see from Christoph here is the hope that the group just doesn't want to chase. We saw earlier it was a bit neck and neck at the front. People would push forward, do a little chase effort, but then they didn't want to do too much work, so they'd sit up and the group would never quite catch the breakaway that we saw going for the win from the HDR rider. We'll see what we can do today, whether Christoph was watching that and decided to go with these tactics. But it's good to see ESRT now reacting as we come up the kicker. But yeah, nothing too aggressive here. I think if people wanted to shut that down, they'd be kicking at 8 on this first lap, getting the speed up. And there's a real difference on that kick. So you did about 16.2 for Christoph there, but 16.6 to 17 in the rest of the pack. And we see if people really going hard up there, they'll be doing about the 15, but the time's then made by carrying that speed over. See one of the ESRT riders at the front starting to try and close it down a little bit. It's really going to be on them as possibly the main competition against Rose Beast Mode to do it. See CMC. There's lots of CMC riders. Hadn't quite noticed if they've got a team, but that'll be great if they have got a team out. Very strong South African side. Do well in TTTs each week. It's good to see them getting involved in more scratch racing. So see at the front we've got the ESRT, bunch of 3 of them there, just trying to close down Christoph up the road, who's still motoring away above 6 watts per kilo. He's only got a 5-second lead, so it's definitely coming down, but the fact that he's managed to hold it away through the start-finish banner is very telling. See one of the Foudre riders pushing through. Fred, 11 watts per kilo, but again, it's this little thing of people bursting through the front, then slowing down, not wanting to do crazy amounts of work, as the SRT riders, John Verma and Brink, just keeping a nice steady 5 and a bit of watts per kilo, and with the benefit of the group, that's going to slowly eat off and eat away into Christoph's lead. They don't need to necessarily do the same. As long as someone's constantly taking over the front, they're going to maintain that momentum that the new Pack Dynamics 4 that we're using has tried to get rid of. And see that gap is just closing and closing, and there's no way 2 seconds will stay away on this climb. There's a real good time to see there. Christoph's just calling it quits, had a little ease. He's in a bit of no man's land here. See Nico Buz from FPC Foudre. See their lightning kit just coming and get in front of him. It'd be really important for Christoph if he can have someone leading him up the climb. Otherwise the group's going to swarm him heavily. He should stay on though, he's more than strong enough. See Tommy Vale from CMC really kicking it hard up here. Remember this lap is first across the line, so we're going to see some long attacks. Tommy's a very strong rider, riding regularly with the Beast TTT team. And absolutely crushing it, one of the world champions TTTers in Frappe. Very much borderline AA plus rider, suited towards this kind of course. He might not have the punch, so that's why I think you'd go for the long, but we saw a good 12-14 watt per kilo there. But we see some really strong riders here with big numbers who are just going to be sitting in. Well, you see Nordy signed up there. Very experienced rider. He's been performing fantastically in the ZRL this year, riding for Rose Beast Mode, formerly / partially a dirt rider. We see a couple of the riders just a bit close to the front from Rose Beast Mode. See one, the Paddy Hamlet, just pushing hard, and he's got McMullen in his wheel. And they've gone just at the right time. People are on their wheel, but they should hold this away all the way to the line. People will come through. Let's see. Oh, one of the Coalition riders might just take him. Oh, that was tight on the line. Couple of points there for Coalition. Couple more for Burrito in the Llama jersey. The light blue one. But good points all around there, I think, for Rose Beast Mode. A couple for ESRT. Again, with a course like it is all about getting those finish points. The segment points will help and might make the difference between first and second. But with 6 stages this time around, it's making sure you're consistently getting first and second. First and fifth will hurt. But first and second, if you're second every other race, you can afford 1/5. And still be in contention. It's all about consistent performance here. So you see a little bit of a splits formed. It's surprising to see it that early. The foul effort was quite strong. People were pushing on the downhill. These riders are going to be wanting to work quite hard to get back on. See some of the Rose Beast Mode riders leading out. Marin of Foudre. Quite a lot of Foudre riders here, so it's going to be very important they get on. I mean, it's the top 4 that counts, so they want to kick hard here and get back into the draft of the group. Got a chase group 5 seconds back. Couple of CMC riders. couple of the Spanish TZH. I will be surprised if these guys all get back on. I might see a couple of them going here. See Visser from CMC really pushing, but that group at the front on the downhill, 49 rides in it, is just going to keep away. Too much speed in the draft. For those who aren't aware with the new draft dynamics, oh, I've got this terrible view again, sorry about that. Take a look at another squirrel instead. With these new draft dynamics, the draft extends much further out the back of the group than we used to see. We used to have a very solid cutoff. 5 meters you were in the draft, 6 meters you weren't. But now we see much more of a graduated draft going back. We see how this Fujo ride is just able to cling on. It's probably about 10, 12 meters, 16 meters even, off the back. But he's within a couple of seconds, and he's just going to have enough draft here. He's going to have to put a bit of dig. Now we're getting, so it's 20 meters. There's a bit of a cut-off, but it's graduated back. And so if he can get across now, a real aggressive chase, otherwise he is going to sink back. But he managed to hold on really nicely, despite being 10, 15, 16 meters back there on the downhill, whereas normally you see people flying back off in the old pack dynamic system. That's going to be gutting for this Fujo ride. He's going to drop back into the little group, chase group behind. Got a couple of CMC rides in TZH on the ESRT, but with the availability of 8 riders for each team, most of them are going to have 4 riders still in this front pack. See one of the ESRT riders just pushing a little bit at the front. Some of the key things in this race is going to be assessing your opposition. There are going to be quite a few teams out there who are primarily made up of riders with 20-minute powers of about 4.0 all the way up to about 4.5. But then you see the likes of Rose Beast Mode, where the majority of them are around 5. Take a quick check of the numbers. But yeah, they do have a 4.2 in there, but almost every other rider is 4.8 or above. And so for teams like them, especially with 8 riders turning up, it's really important that they push the pace and make people work. And that's what they could do if they have, say, a team of 6, 2 designated riders just to absolutely send it, and mean that the riders who can only do a 4 watt kilo 20 minute are going to be far too knackered, and they're just going to get dropped even on the flats. So it'll be interesting if we see a few more team tactics. And again, the thing to consider is they're going to be racing against the likes of ESRT, and the vast majority of them are going to be more than strong enough to hold on to see Dalen just pushing the pace. So he's riding for Burritos, but I believe Dalen was one of the Vikings not so long ago. See if I can get some more info on that. Could very well be a different R Dalen. Ah, it is. It's a G Dalen. Apologies to the Gunnar. It's not the man I was looking for. So we're approaching the end of lap 4 here. It's lap 8 for the next segment. Just get it on the screen for you now. See, these just starting to stretch out the group again with 2 of the ESRT riders. I think we'll Carsten from Beast Mode. It's a little breakaway. The group's on top of them though. And it's just stretching out the field on the downhill. Maybe not the best place to do it. But again, you want to be making those rides in the pack really work. Lots of these rides, if they're having to constantly punch up that kicker and then maintain 4 watts per kilo or so in the pack, are going to tire very, very quickly. What you're really looking for is to try and drop the 4th rider of other teams. Because in a group of 40, that's going to be a significant points difference. Just get them up on the screen for you. So, going from maybe top 20 to 40th, you're looking at least 24 points. And that's more than an FTS segment, and realistically, unless you're one of the top riders, that's going to be a huge, huge gap that you're not going to overcome. So it's really important teams, if they can drop their opposition's 4th rider, then they're going to get a significant number of points on them. It's maybe a bit early in the series to be kind of knowing who you're up against, but you can always have a scan. ZwiftPower, it's one of the great things it's for. You just have a quick look through the sign-ups, see who's there, see the kind of people on your level. And you can usually gauge quite quick, especially the guys in this field who have probably raced with each other regularly. It's been a bit shaken up because of the changes of the ranking system, and with recent changes to the actual Zwift ranking system that they're using. But even then, most of these riders will know each other quite well. They'll know what they need to do to beat each other. They'll know their weaknesses. So you can see one of the SRT rides just leading it up there, but nothing crazy this time. Saw quite a few riders doing 5s, 6s and then staying comfortably. So coming through these middle kind of laps, especially before we get to the foul lap where you might see a few long attacks, it's about really conserving as much as you can each lap. On the old pack dynamics, we could just sit at the back as we see McMullen doing here. Wu for Foudre, Tommy Vale, CMC all just kind of chilling towards the back. And that was definitely a viable tactic. You'd sit there as long as you didn't drop more than 5 meters back. You were very comfortable. You got a bit more rest as the front constantly cycled. But now in the new pack dynamics, we can see that it's much harder to move up, and you can get caught out by auto braking a little bit more at the back. They've adjusted it from the original kind of iterations, just made it much more pleasant at the back, and it is, you know, it's not going to suddenly throw you out, which it used to. But it's still not necessarily in your favour just to be sitting at the back. You want to be a little bit further forward and adjusting your pace based on what the front's doing, rather than what the couple of rides ahead of you are doing. If you maintain a, you know, 3, 4, 5 row gap to the front constantly, you'll avoid hitting it, and you'll be keeping it the lowest possible watt per kilo you can for the race. Just taking a look at some of the numbers that might be of interest to you. Going into the race, the top 20-minute watt per kilos. 3 of the beast mode riders: Christoph TM, who we saw earlier, an absolute monster; David Dahn from beast mode, and then Simon Walter. All very strong, but possibly slightly lacking on the sprint front compared to some of the other top sprinters in this field and low rank riders. But in this series, where it's much more climb based than some others, we have a nice even spread of courses suiting all different styles. They're really going to come into play. I'm looking at 15-second watt per kilo numbers. We've got John Verma from EST just watching some of the SRT riders just pushing off the front, followed by one of the Foudre, and see a couple people closing it down now, just to not let anything go. It's a bit early for a long bomb for the foul points, but everyone has to be on their toes, and it's much easier to respond instantly, get hold of a wheel, than to let them get a couple of seconds, especially with the strength of some of these riders here. So one thing I'd always say, if you're against a rider much stronger than you, you have to react instantly, especially in small fields. If you let them get a couple of seconds, they can take advantage and motor away, but if you're in that draft, you're getting that 30% draft benefit. Might be even a bit higher now, haven't actually checked out the numbers properly, but you're getting significant draft benefit from just sitting on their wheels, so it's important that you jump early. And a lot of the riders who are a bit fitter tend to have slightly lower sprints, just the more aerobically focused and fast, any convertible muscle fibres. Can't remember the technical term, but essentially more like to be slow twitch than fast twitch. And so you tend to see those riders who are really at peak fitness, getting above 5 watts per kilo up to 6. Most of them have slightly lower sprints than you'd tend to see for the real top CAD A sprinters or platinum sprinters that we have today. Yeah, so going back to the numbers, the John Vermeers are the top watt per kilo, 16.2. Anders Bengtsson from Coalition, I think it's slightly set from the Canyon team, but it's an affiliate of it's a community side of the Canyon team, it's Canyon Coalition, 16.1. We've got a bit of a drop down on the TZH riders. Jorge Sainz, 15.3, Florian Wu from Foudre, 15.2. Then a whole host of rides in the 13 to 14 watt per kilo range. On this course, where it's really going to match at the finish, those raw watts. As it's a downhill course, it's time to build speed, and that's where the difference comes in raw watts versus watt per kilo. Generally, they can hit a higher top speed, but it takes them a bit longer to get up to it. Whereas those with high watt per kilos can easily jump away from a group, and are much more beneficial, obviously, on uphill climbs. Not necessarily on uphill finishes or sprints, though. One thing you've got to be aware of, those riders with high raw power tend to have a bit more weight to them, shall we say, pleasantly. A bit stockier, a bit stronger in that sense. And so they carry a bit more momentum into the base of the climbs. And so in a lot of finishes, you see it especially on New York Park Perimeter Loop, where you've got a long downhill, then followed by a very, well, relatively short, sharp uphill. The heavy riders who can carry their speed a bit better tend to very well. See one of the ESRT riders just kicking a little bit over the top there. It's really important that you maintain your speed and get up to speed very quickly coming over there. Too many riders hit the top of that climb and ease off, meaning they have to then chase back on a bit on this downhill, straight up to 50 kilometers an hour. It was good to see the likes of Foudre and Beast Mode especially, 3 riders straight up into the red numbers, watching any possible attacks. So just about to move into lap 8 here. So the next time round, the start-finish banner will be the next segment. First across the line again. But that's why we saw the instant reaction potential from Rose Beast Mode, watching out for a long attack. Just see one, I think it's... Oh, sorry. Having a bit of a nightmare there. Just saw someone moving through the group quite quickly, but they seem to have settled now. I see one of the Beast Mode guys going along now, so this is the time to do it. Lots of riders just sitting. See Darn chasing on though, so Von Haren making the move, but that's very strange to see one of his teammates chasing on just a little bit late, and then another teammate chasing them down at the front. Possibly not the wisest way to execute the move, but it's worked nonetheless. They've got a second or two gap. And so that is generally what I'd say is the best place to make a long break. You've got a little 1-2% uphill. It's not much, but on a course that's primarily flat, it can make that difference. Then you enter a downhill, so the group, generally, if you get the gap quickly, won't react. They think they have time as we approach the uphill kicker. And then by the time we get here again, the group generally just want to sit in. They want to save energy for the sprint finish. So you can go all out up here, 6, 10, or even more watt per kilo. See Tommy Vale and Thomas chasing down TBR and CMC respectively. Oh, actually it was the other way around. Anyhow, you see they just, Rose Beast Mode guys just eased up a little bit there. 8 watts per kilo isn't much up that climb for them. Sometimes they're even lower than that. And the group's just slowly coming back through them. It's a bit of a strange way. Whether it's possible lead out for one of their other riders behind, I'm not sure. See if ESRT jumped the gun to try and chase them down. But it hasn't worked out for them. And now we see people starting to build for the foul points. They want to be doing 6 watts per kilo through this section, just building up momentum and then kicking off as they come around this corner. See no one at the front really hitting those big numbers, and you see slowly the red numbers will come through. You see Paddy Hamlet off the front. Peter Avenat from CMC on his wheel. Hamlet's going to get caught here before the line. See on the coalition riders flying through real strong. So again, lots of points of Beast Mode. A couple of points there for Brian Owens of the Damn Dirty Ospreys. And Baltimore Riders, very strong guy, always there or thereabouts. Doing very, very well in such a strong field. But again, big points for Rose Beast Mode, as we commonly come to expect from them. It's a little disappointing from the SRT. You'd expect them to have a few more riders up there competing. As you look back, there's 2 little gaps formed, but again, it's probably going to get closed down quickly. None of these riders are going to really let anything up. See one rider pushing up the road, quickly followed. Whether, you know, it's an opposition off the back. I think it's one of the TZH riders. Strange, it looks very much like one of his teammates off the back, which would be an odd call to attack then. You see, this is the time to really make those other riders suffer. If you have the energy, just keep pushing. And one thing that could have seen possibly from teams that haven't had quite yet today, from any dreams I've watched, is teams attacking immediately after that, possibly sitting in for the first cross the line segment here, and then attacking and going for a team time trial away. With 3-4 riders here, it's long enough to the finish that people don't want to respond. And the pace has been gentle enough that, you know, 2-3 guys together could easily make it all the way to the finish. So really one rider doing it for 3-4 laps. You could definitely see it with 2 or 3 for 8 laps. It is race 1 in the series, so I imagine things are a little bit cagey. People are just testing the water a bit. But we're very much missing a kind of a... don't know how to describe it, apart from a Dingoes-esque team. Like, people who are just instigators, doing silly things, trying different attacks just to mix it up. You know, doesn't work 5, 6 times out of 10, but the rest of the time you make something happen. It may not always work in your favour, as the Dingoes tend to find out, but it's definitely makes racing a lot more exciting, a lot more interesting. Vikings Valhalla, another team like that are always willing to try something, working together as a team. And the SRT normally are a very team-focused group of riders. Trying to avoid saying team twice there. But it's one of those groups that, you know, every time you go to a race, there's always 2 or 3 of them turning up, and they'll always try something. Whether that's sending someone up the road while another one sits on your wheel, making you choose between leading one of them out or letting one of them go. They tend to always do something and have something planned out. So again, just people pushing the pace a little bit. Another one of the ASRT riders. I'm surprised, I've said a few times that these teams, especially ASRT and Beast Mode, aren't taking advantage of having their full complement of 8 riders a little bit more, using 1 or 2 of them just to increase that pace and make others have to do a lot of work. We're 13 teams deep here today, and managing to knock out 4 or 5 from contention very early on in the race means you can really just focus on your main opposition. Let's see, one of the SRT riders kicking it up there. But again, it seems to be the case of, you know, a little punch off and then just holding a consistent pace, seeing if anything happens, rather than going all in, making something happen, forcing it. In a field like this, there's so many strong riders. There are some teams that maybe aren't as strong across the board, but almost every team has a couple of riders who are going to be competing in the front group. And so if you're not going all in to make a breakaway, it's unlikely to stick. See, on the TZH riders, using the downhill, accelerated really hard over the top and just held the numbers, and getting a nice little gap here. It's going to be tough with the pace of the group once it gets back up to speed. It has been reduced, allegedly, Pack Dynamics 4, but it's still a very strong advantage to being in the group on a downhill versus Solitude on the Beast Mode riders. Just pushing a little bit, just doing a little bit more. Say a little bit, you know, for most riders 6.2 is absolutely crazy. It's, you know, 1 minute max effort. But for these guys, you know, they can hold it for 2, 3, 4 minutes, some of them even 5 plus. So it's very capable of them just to do that and just slowly eke it back in, then let other people do the work, get some more recovery. See it shut down very quickly before we went any further. As you can see into the scoreboard there, it's 6 laps to go. And it's possibly a little bit too early for any long attacks now. Best time if we were going to see a very, very long attack was directly after the foul, when people are tired. By now those top riders have got energy back in the legs, maybe not totally fresh, and you'd hope not with the standard of the racing here. But they've got enough that they can shut down and attack if they want to, especially with 2 or 3 of them working together. What could come into play, if you just look up on the road on the mini-map, we've got a little group ahead that are going to be lapped. And now this could very well come into play with riders possibly jumping over here. Might not be this lap depending on the speed. Definitely on the next lap if they haven't caught them by then. People went very aggressive. They get a couple of seconds rest with the group ahead. They are, you know, the main group will slowly catch them. But it's a nice way, and so there we see a couple of the SRT riders see them moving through the group, and they started to kick quite hard up here. Hasn't quite worked out as a full-on attack, but you see a lot of 5 of them sat towards the front. And the thing to watch out for is just see a swarm of them moving through the group at a higher pace. I always try and tell people, you know, if you're looking out for attacks, that's what you do. By the time the rider hits the front, and it's off the front, it's too late to shut it down. You've got to watch for them moving through the group quicker than everyone else. See them just getting advantage from those riders up the road, but everyone is still in contact. Again, it's like we saw with Rose Beast Mode. There's a small gap, to every single one of their riders, and it makes it so much easier to chase down. When you want a breakaway, it needs to be decisive. It needs to be, you know, all in for 20, 30 seconds. Get that gap, and then you can settle into a, you know, semi-sustainable pace. And you've got to all go at the same time. When you don't all go at the same time or the same numbers, you just leave a nice long trail, and it just provides draft for anyone to jump across, doing far less than you are on the front. You make breakaways stick by going all in for, you know, a bit of time together, making it so that someone has to work incredibly hard to get across, rather than just, you know, relatively hard tiring themselves, but they can still get on your wheel and maintain it afterwards. Takes the risk factor out when they can just move through the draft ahead, because they're not wasting effort. They'd still be in the draft if they're sat in the group, they're in the draft if they're moving up. Whereas if they have to push across outside the draft, they're wasting energy that they could be saving for later in the race. So it's off-putting, especially when that gap gets above 5 seconds. Unless the person at the front is totally eased off, that means a good 30 seconds to get back onto them, if not a minute. And for these rides, if you're doing that, that's enough to put you out for the finish when we're getting this close. Again, as you saw last lap, a couple of the ASRT riders towards the front. Looks to be 6 of them at the moment. You know, pushing 7-8 watts per kilo. It's a bit strange to see this, whether they're just trying to tire out the pack a bit, keep the pace high, but not blow themselves up. We've seen, you know, Anders Broberg, John Verma, so some of their top riders in that doing the work there. It's just a bit of a strange way to go about it. You'd think they'd use some of their rides who maybe aren't going to necessarily do as well at the finish, just to push the pace if they're going for that. If they're going for a breakaway, you'd expect them to be doing a lot more than 8 watts per kilo. Now, there are rides in this front group who are averaging, you know, below 4 watts per kilo for the entire race, with lots of them able to do, with some of them able to do above 5, many of them able, well, most of them able to do above 4.5 for 20. And this isn't a comfortable pace, but it's definitely manageable. These ESRT riders should have the ability to really go for a strong breakaway. And one thing I talked about earlier, tactics-wise, whether you're just getting people used to seeing you there. One thing that happens, you know, you see a swarm of riders who aren't normally mid-pack or at the front especially. You know the riders who just normally sit right on the back, don't do any work. So when you see them moving up the group or towards the front, you know something's about to happen, whether it's them, whether they've spotted something, or there's something coming up. But, you know, the more and more you see them towards the front, especially on the same place, the less you think about it. See one of the SRT riders going a bit there. And so one of the tactics you can kind of do is just, you know, regularly push the pace, same point, but nothing crazy. Just get people used to see John Verm going, 6 watts per kilo. It's not going to be enough to stay away or do anything crazy, but again, causing people to have to work a little bit more, chasing down. See one of the Rose Beast Mode guys, Karsten, just jumping on his wheel. He's very much following another tack there, just moving through the group, not kicking crazy, just 6-7 watts per kilo, which can be enough to get a breakaway, but as soon as you see red numbers, people react. If you see high white numbers, which is anything below 8 watts per kilo, people don't necessarily react in time. You know, see if he really sends it up here, 6, 5, 7, he's not really committing to it. Oh, starting to push a little bit more there though. I'm not quite sure. I know they're just caught in two minds here. They seem to be kind of getting stuck into no man's land, pushing a bit off the front, maybe causing a few riders to do more work, but it's not going to harm the likes of Beast Mode. And yeah, they, you know, maybe it's looking like they're regularly going to be towards the front, but Beast Mode there and reacting every time, with different riders taking the work, so it's not hurting them or tiring them. So you see the classic call of dying, and then all of a sudden a 16 watt per kilo sprint. It's one of my pet peeves, and I'm sure I'm guilty of it too. Lots of riders, you know, call out, oh, I'm knackered, can't do anything, and then suddenly find that bit extra energy. So just going in to lap 13 of 16. Or finishing off, shall we say. I'll let you just enjoy some of the chat going on. I think it says plenty about the pace at the moment, that everyone can clearly type and comfortably engage in chat without all the typos that you normally see. I'm just going through some of the lapped riders. Still got a very large front group here, so plenty of points. I wouldn't say available, because there's points always available, but plenty to gain by finishing in the top half of the finish, rather than kind of ending up cruising towards the line, as you see with some races. I'd see 3 or 4 of the beast mode guys just moving towards the front, one sending it there, possibly using the confusion of coming through rides ahead to go for it, but then they've had a drop out there, stop pedaling for a few seconds. Not quite sure. They're just stretching it out a little bit. This one, the kind of subtle attacks that you see that people were talking about with John Verma earlier. But they just kind of ease away. They're still in contact, but they're getting enough of a gap over the middle of the group. And then suddenly they'll kick, and they've already got a big, you know, distance open that people can't instantly react and chase it down. But because they didn't go quickly to begin with, no one saw it. See a couple of riders there working hard. So it seems like Carson's been set out on managing the front of the race for beast mode. He's done it a couple of times now recently, at least for these latter few laps. Every time you see someone moving through quickly, he's there ready to jump on their wheel, either to go with them or to stop that breakaway. One thing we might start to see is some more kind of group efforts from beast mode, as we saw at the start with Christoph TM. When it comes down to the actual pure sprints, you know, they did crush it on foul and the FTS segment, but compared to some teams, they're not quite as punchy or aggressive. And we've seen a couple of riders just sitting in for the finish. Anders Bengston really nailing the segments, and John Verma, as we saw earlier. There are a couple of those top sprinters we mentioned who haven't quite gone all in yet, so might be saving just for one big effort at the finish. So looking at the kind of beast mode team as a whole, that's possibly where they lack a little bit in the, especially raw watt per kilo. In terms of raw watts. So downhill finish, if it doesn't go long, may not suit them. So again, you expect them to possibly try and force something, or at least push the pace from the kicker all the way to the finish. So it's more of a 1 minute aerobic effort, VO2, than a very short anaerobic sprint. Just stereotypical of most Swift races on flatter courses. You can see a couple of coned riders coming up. Really good to see him being competitive today, especially with a nice mix of A's and B's, rather than just solid A pluses and A's, as you see with a lot of the top teams. It's great to see people stepping on this. Definitely a course where you can do it. The B's can definitely hang on this course. They're going to be on their limits. They're really going to be struggling, but they can definitely hang on. See one, the Coalition Bengston, as we talked about earlier, one of the top sprinters, pushing hard here. See, penultimate lap, and people are really going aggressive there. Nordy from beast mode going crazy on the front, 16, 15 watts per kilo, 11 seconds up there, absolutely nuts. Now, oops, that was my fault. That was the FTS segment, and that's why. So, you see big points there, beast mode, big points for Dirty Ospreys with Eric Barnhorst doing well. You see the group getting very stretched out. It's going so excited talking about all those other teams. Totally missed the FTS segment coming up. And it definitely explains why they're going so hard. You see it's really stretched out now. And this is where I'd expect to see beast mode pushing the pace at the front or ESRT, one of those real deep, strong teams. Just holding this away, you know, it may stay together. See, one of the riders really flying through there. I'm not sure who that is. Baxter from Burrito. Absolutely nailing it. So this is going to be a long attack into the finish. He's going all in now. There's no point holding anything back. If he gets caught at this stage by the group, that's going to be race over in terms of front group finish for him. And you know, he's being left to kind of get away. 5 watts per kilo probably isn't going to be enough to hold off the group. And now you see he's bringing it down now for whether he's blown. See some of the Beast Mode riders reacting now. Again, Carson just watching the front. 7 watts per kilo, he's closing it down. Possibly sacrificing himself for the good of the team. Making sure that first place isn't gone. While here, just get a quick reminder of the finish points for you. Now we had them on screen for ages earlier. But there is an advantage for the podium places. We see go first, second, third, all 5-point advantage over the place behind. And then we start getting to single points before it drops off at 11. And then every 10 place you have another bit of a drop off. You see a couple of riders starting to push the pace as we expected, but a lot of teams just content to sit in towards the front, let things happen ahead of them. So we're coming to the finish of this race. Last part, we want to see people doing 8s, 9s up here, especially at the start. A couple of riders pushing 14, they're really kicking. You want to carry your speed up on the first part, and if you can slow after. So one of the food riders that we talked about earlier, F-Wu going long here. He's going to try and maintain. This is it. Oh, no, he's eased back down. Very bizarre. He's got a bit of a gap on the field. I think he'd just try and... might be a lap behind, so that was his FTS segment. So you think some of the riders, if they know that, might want to try and jump on their wheel there. But yeah, and they've eased up significantly. It could have been a useful lead-out train, especially for TBR, the likes of Thomas there. Who's on the front lap, taking it up. The SRT rider's on his wheel. They've got a little bit of a gap over the group, but once people start sprinting, that's going to go very quickly. So look, coming into the last bends, got the hairpin to come, so people are going to start winding it up from here. It's very tight at the front. See Nordy sending it possibly a little bit too... Oh, we've got Paddy Hamlet leading out the front. He's probably going to get overtaken by some of the Beast Mode guys. Beast Mode coming through real strong. Clever Martinez for Down Dirty Ospreys, possibly coming for the win. But no, Beast Mode taking it through there. Real strong result that came through very hot with, looks like Christoph TM potentially taking the win. Nordy either in second or third. Good scoring for Martinez of the Down Dirty Ospreys. Then good results for ESRT, possibly compared to other teams, but not where they want to be in terms of beating Beast Mode. A real aggressive finish. Saw riders going early, and people held it a little bit over the top, but as you tend to find with this race, get over the top of the climb, kick early, and then people just rest up. As you're coming through the downhill and those bumps, you just want to recompose, get a good position in the group, and then accelerate through those bumps, building up speed and kicking on the corner. Saw it execute really nicely from Beast Mode there. On screen, it, to me, to begin with, it didn't look like there was anyone in front of them, but they had Paddy from, I think it's Coalition he's riding for, who managed to just stay in front. He kicked it maybe a little bit too early, got stuck out in front. Oh, I was going to say it's not Paddy, it's Paul Hamlet from Wahula Col. And his lead out just helped Beast Mode keep in the draft for just long enough that they could kick through the front and score some solid points at the finish. So we'll try and get results on the screen for you as they come through. Not quite there yet. Just give it a couple of refreshes, but it was really interesting start to the series and a great race. So there we go. Christoph TM taking the win. As you saw, Clever Martinez, Down Dirty Ospreys in second. Real strong performance from them, really helpful. Next rider, Brian Owens, down in 17th. Eric Barnhorst, probably one of the first Bs back, with Moritz Polheimer and Matthew Bassett up there for Coalition. But yeah, real strong result from Beast Mode there. 3rd, 4th and 5th. Be big scores for them, especially if they're riders who've got segment points. And even if not, they tend to pack out the segments anyway as a team, so they're going to push down and lower the score that other teams can get. ESRT have done well, but Coalition could very well be in second here. It's going to be very tight between them, with Bengtson taking quite a few segment points. Polmeyer, Bassett, and Linda. I'm not going to try it, but Andreas there, finishing as their top 4 riders. 4th rider and 20th. ESRT just beat that at the finish points, with Orion Brink in 18th. But a really good performance there from Coalition, especially for a team of Bs and As, versus the A-pluses that we tend to see towards the front. Let's come down. Hopefully we've got quite a lot of the finishers there. So we had 36 probably across the line in that front group of sorts. A couple of the riders just dropping off towards the end, probably on that last kicker. That's a very big front group. Good for Cone there, managing to get 4 of their riders in the front group. See Bernhard up the front there, and 3 of them staying in that front group, and that's going to really count against some of the teams who didn't quite manage it. See Foudre only with 1 rider in that front group, so that's definitely going to harm them a bit. Now, one of the strong teams to watch out for. Plenty of riders across the board as we see them down there, but lots of Bs possibly in there. Let's see if we get any more riders just coming through for the results for you before we close up the stream. There we go. Now that looks to be it. So on that note, thank you very much for joining us. Next week we've got a slightly different style of racing. You're going to have to tune in to find out about that. Later on this evening I'm going to be following the Silver 3 category. That's in about 15 minutes, the same course. Then next week, instead of following the Platinum Plus, we're going to be following the Platinum 1.5 at this time, and see how those teams get on. For this time slot, we're going to be alternating every week, or every stage, should I say, is probably more accurate, as the final stage, stage 5 and 6, are doubled up. But it's going to be Platinum Plus, then Platinum 1.5, back to Platinum Plus, on repeat. Whereas in the later evening slot, at the evening for us in Europe, going to be covering a variety of different lower down categories on the scale. So we're going to have Silver 3, Gold 1, Gold 2, and probably Gold 3, and then see if we can grab onto any of them later on. Thanks very much for joining. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back very, very shortly for anyone watching the Silver 3 race.